Hello, good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for joining our masterclass today. The title for our masterclass is Shorten the O2C Cycle with Digital Invoicing and Payments. And we have with us our host and the masterclass speaker, John Salick, the Strategic AR Advisor and Subject Matter Expert in Emagia. John, over to you to begin the session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Akshay. Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us today. Have another good program for you. And we'll dig right in. First of all, we'll do a quick introduction along with definitions. Always favor doing that because some of these terms that are used mean different things to different people. And then we'll get right into it. We'll talk about how digital invoicing accelerates cash receipts, and then shift quickly over to how receiving digital payments also accelerates cash receipts. And then we'll talk a little bit about the synergy between digital invoicing and digital payments, and also a customer care portal, how the three of those capabilities work together very, very well. Share with you a customer success story, summarize the benefits, recap with a conclusion, and then we'll take your questions. All right, let's start off. Ran across an interesting survey not so long ago that said 71% of CFOs who responded state they have accelerated adoption of digital payments. That's pretty good. 3/4, 71%. Have accelerated adoption of digital payments. And of course, for them, that means outbound payments to their suppliers, but as well as the capability to accept digital payments from their customers. And why did they do this? Well, benefits. And what were those benefits? Increased efficiency, lower cost, improved working capital, which is what we're going to focus on today, but also to satisfy customer preferences and vendor payment preferences. You want to keep good relations with both, obviously. And then also there's a significant increase in improved security and exposure to fraud. And that was digital payments, but in our view, the same benefits can be gained from digital invoicing. And that's what we're talking about today, digital payments and digital invoicing. First, just to recap some definitions. Digital invoicing is electronic delivery of an invoice versus a paper invoice delivered via the postal service. Most digital invoicing applications also include some added functionality, particularly when it comes to pulling data from your ERP to compile the invoice, and the ability for credit and debit adjustments, also tracking the invoice dunning. How about digital payments? Well, a lot of talk, a lot of publicity about digital payments, and they go by different names: real-time payments, frictionless digital payments, and fintech payments. But basically, these are electronic payments that transfer funds and the remittance advice, as opposed to a paper check with the remit advice, attached to it. And digital payments are made directly between buyer and seller through an intermediary that provides a direct, secure internet connection, hence the reduction in exposure to fraud. So that's what we're talking about. And let's get right into it. So how can digital invoicing accelerate cash receipts? Well, the first thing is it enables, with its added functionality, the fast compilation of the invoice, pulling data from the ERP, the customer master, the pricing file, data such as that, and compile it in the customer's required or preferred format. Now think about that. You want somebody to do something for you. Basic principle is to make it as easy as possible. Well, you want your customer to pay your invoice on time. If you can, give it to them in the format they prefer. The second big advantage here is it delivers the invoice in the customer's required or preferred mode, most commonly posting to the vendor portal. And I say required or preferred. More and more companies, particularly larger companies, are requiring that their suppliers invoice them electronically. You know, you get the notice, starting in 3 months, we will no longer accept paper invoices. Well, if you don't have the capability to invoice electronically, you're in trouble. Now, you can get a waiver, an extension, that sort of thing, which helps. But ultimately, you'll end up going to a third-party service that will take your invoices and deliver them electronically. But, you know, there's cost to that. So why not have the capability yourself? And while many companies require them, even more prefer them. And they might not outright ban acceptance of paper invoices, but they'll request you invoice them electronically. And you know, here again, you want somebody to do something for you, make it as easy as possible. They want it electronic, deliver it electronically. It also helps enhance your position as a valued supplier. And for those of you doing business in Europe or LATAM, a lot of those countries now requiring e-invoicing. Now they do it so they can better track revenue for their value added and other taxes. You know, clearly a nefarious purpose for it, but hey, if that's the requirement, you got to be able to meet those requirements. And key to acceleration of cash receipts, digital invoicing delivers the invoice same day or next day, gets it there fast. And another point, and we'll expound on this a little bit, is since digital invoicing makes the delivery and receipt of the invoice faster, it contributes to making the whole cash on delivery process easier for both parties, and ultimately can lead to an increase in COD transactions. But you know, if you step back and you think about cash receipts, getting paid for a product or service you delivered, step number one is delivering the invoice. If you can deliver it fast, in the format the customer wants, and in the mode the customer wants, well, you're ahead of the game. And it will result in faster payments or reduction in delay of payments, which is kind of the same thing. All right, so that's digital invoicing. How about digital payments? Well, we're going to focus here on receiving digital payments from your customers. And how do digital payments, how does receiving digital payments accelerate cash receipts? Well, when your customer triggers an electronic payment, you receive it the same or next day. And the funds are available in your bank account same or next day. So right there, talk about acceleration. Big advantage. And as I said before, receiving digital payments also facilitate the COD process because, you know, the invoice is presented electronically. The customer pays electronically when your truck driver is there delivering the products. And it happens quickly, so it's not so much a burden. You know, right now, if your driver has to collect a check, pick up a check from the customer, you know, that's cumbersome. Oh, it's not ready. Just wait 5 minutes. We'll have it for you. And, you know, the delivery folks don't have time. And then there's always the risk that it might bounce. So to the degree you can facilitate cash on delivery transactions, you'll use it more. You know, a lot of companies will have customers that they say, you know, we really shouldn't extend credit to this customer. They're too risky. But, you know, COD is such a hassle that we'll let it slide and hope for the best. Well, if you can eliminate those hassles and you can expand the number of customers you're dealing with on a cash on delivery basis, that's going to certainly accelerate those cash receipts. And even if it's only 2 or 3% of your business, that acceleration can be important. Did a diagram here. Let's just walk through it because this is the heart of the matter here and illustrates where the acceleration is achieved. So we've got, the top row is obviously the labels, the column labels. The next row is the cycle times for paper-based invoicing and payments. And the lower row there is the cycle time for digital invoicing and digitally received payments. So what are the steps, start to finish? Well, the first is to process the customer's order and then fulfill it. Well, the mode of invoicing doesn't change that. So I said 2 days for each. Then we need to, now that the order's been fulfilled, need to produce the invoice. Well, as I said earlier, most of these digital invoicing modules have the capability to produce the invoice faster. So maybe you pick up a day or two there. Then we need to deliver the invoice. Well, clearly, big advantage, big acceleration in digital invoicing. Same or next day, I put 1 day. Put an invoice in the mail, particularly in the US. Well, boy, it's gotten bad. I say 3 to 9 days. And when the customer receives the invoice, they set it up for payment and they pay it. And if we assume net 30-day terms, if you're lucky, on average, your customers pay you in 35 days. Well, that's not going to change, except some customers, small and medium-sized businesses especially, will pay earlier. And there's some evidence to that. I'm picking it up on the press and things like that. Some evidence that they'll pay sooner, a little earlier, just as a matter of convenience. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then, as I say, if COD can be increased, that will certainly accelerate cash receipts for those customers. And think about it. If your DSO is 35 and you change 3% of customers representing 3% of your revenue to COD, that's 1 day of DSO that you'll pick up. So it can have a real impact there. And then receiving the payment, same thing as sending out the invoice. If you rely on the mail, boom, 2 to 9 days. Whereas if your payment is received digitally, it can be same or next day. We talk about, we talk about funds availability, much quicker with digital. So if you sum it all up and look at the comparison, it looks like a range of anywhere from 8 to 20 day acceleration is possible. So that's obviously significant and can have a big impact. And it certainly aligns the stars favorably for you to receive the cash and have availability of the cash earlier, and in some cases much earlier, depending on your circumstance, your customer base. So big advantage here. What are some of the other advantages of accepting digital payments? Well, we alluded to them a little earlier, but number one is enhancing the customer experience, which, if you joined us for our webinar on strategic AR management a few months ago, in our perception, that's becoming the top goal of AR management, credit collection operations, is do what you can to ensure the customer has a great experience dealing with you. And if they want to pay electronically and you can't accommodate that, well, that's not a great customer experience for them. So if they want to pay self-serve digital, you can accept that. Boom. That's one feature, one element of their satisfaction. And what I alluded to earlier about paying earlier, you know, for small, medium-sized businesses, they spend their business hours generating orders and fulfilling orders, managing employees, host of other things, right? Dozens of tasks. So normally, they pay vendor invoices or approve vendor invoices off hours, nights, weekends. And if after looking at it, they approve it, they can pay it via a mobile device right then and there, a lot of them will just do it. Say, oh, I want to close this transaction. I want to be done with it and move on. Now, the capability exists to schedule a payment. So I look at it today and say, okay, it's December 2nd. I'll pay this December 15th. And you can make that happen. But, you know, there's a tendency sometimes to just, it's not that much money. We just pay it right now. So that's where you pick up some early payments. You know, the other advantages on accepting digital payments are cost-based. Lower lockbox credit card fees. And for most customers, we're seeing reduced cash application costs because with digital payments, the payment and the remit advice travel together, which is not always the case in other forms of payments, particularly like EDI. And that remit information is presented in a standardized format that gives you pretty complete information. So the auto cash hit rates go up. Auto cash hit rates go up, manual effort goes down, there's cost savings there. So a number of advantages with digital payments. Now I talked about synergy. Where does that come in? Well, it's the ability to provide kind of the total concierge service here, right? Digital invoicing, digital payments. And when you combine that with a customer care portal, it can be very, very powerful. Customers can go to your customer care portal, see what they owe, individual invoices, statements, register a dispute if they want to. But the customer care portal, particularly if it has an AI-powered digital assistant, can guide them through the payment process. Hey, here's all the invoices you owe us. Would you like to pay now? If so, here's your options for payment modes. We can guide you through it step by step. So, great service. And again, it can induce some customers to pay maybe a little earlier. And it's great customer service, particularly when the payments can be made via mobile devices. All right, so that's, you know, a pretty convincing, in my opinion, look at how these two digital technologies can accelerate cash receipts and the availability of funds to your firm. And again, when you combine it with a customer care portal, there's a lot of customer service, customer satisfaction, customer experience enhancing features there too. So a lot of positives here. Let's share with you now a customer success story. One of Emagia's clients, pretty good sized company in global water treatment, approaching $6 billion in revenue with 3 shared service centers. And they implemented a number of the modules that deliver the capabilities we've just described: customer billing, payment portal, digital payments, automated cash app. And again, this is a complex environment. 80 business units, 16,000 customers, at least a dozen currencies, and many, many countries. And the functionality included the straight-through processing of digital payments. And the impact just a few months after implementation. Well, first of all, they were able to accommodate customer preferences on how the customers wanted to pay them. Increases customer satisfaction. And just give you an idea how it became adopted pretty quickly. Over 500 customers are using digital payments. And so far they've paid a little over 25,000 individual invoices worth about $90 million. So we're talking about accelerating $90 million. Good start. And of course, as that multiplies, the impact will be greater. And I mentioned earlier that the digital invoicing modules incorporate the ability to issue and apply credit memos. Well, so far, over 600 credit memos have been used in their digital remits. So, why not? Customers want to use credit memos, and actually you want your customers to use credit memos. Clear them off the account. Auto cash hit rate, we talked about potential increases there, up to 92%. And between the reduction in manual cash app and the reduction in bank lockbox credit card costs, it's contributed to a 60% reduction in the cost to process payments. So the benefits, we've talked about them. Accelerated cash receipts, that was the focus of today's webinar. The ability to meet customer requirements and preferences on how they want to pay and how they want to get billed. We talked about the cost benefits, increased productivity, particularly in Cash App, and a reduction in lockbox and bank fees. So if we follow the value chain down at the bottom, you see the sequence. Improved customer experience. You're meeting the customer's billing specs, which is important. If you don't meet them, you don't get paid. Faster receipts, lower cost, all adds up to a better revenue and profit situation. So let's wrap up with the conclusion here. Remember, digital invoicing is a requirement for a significant number of customers, and they're growing. So you need to meet that requirement. Nice to be able to do it with an in-house capability as opposed to a third party. And it's a preference for many other customers. We talked about the benefits of meeting and accommodating customer preferences. Digital payments, certainly from the receiving side, faster, lower cost, more secure. And here again, more and more suppliers prefer to pay digitally. Now, pleasing customers is more important than pleasing suppliers. But on the other hand, especially these days with supply chain challenges, you want to have good relationship with your suppliers, particularly your key suppliers. We didn't get into the technology much, but what makes these capabilities work very well is the artificial intelligence. If you have AI-powered digital assistants, adds a lot, particularly to the customer interface and the resulting automation. And implementation of these categories is, for IT projects, lower cost and faster. Now, that's all relative, of course. But these are not boil the ocean type projects. These are nice strategic upgrades of digital and automation capabilities that don't cost a whole lot and don't take a lot of time for IT standards. So quick hits, why not? All right, questions. Akshay, are there any audience questions?
Yes, John. Let's go with our first question that you have got here. How does digital invoicing accelerate cash receipts?
Well, first and foremost, it enables you to meet your customers' billing requirements and meet it in-house and eliminate the need to engage a third party to deliver your invoices electronically if that's what your customer's requirement or preference is. So that's a big step. And secondly, the invoice gets there faster. And then if you're able to receive digital payments, those payments, once triggered by the customer, you'll receive the money faster in your bank account, and the funds will be available to you faster. And as we saw from that diagram I presented, you pick up a few days each step of the way, it starts to add up and accelerate the receipt of cash and the availability of cash.
Thank you, John. Let's go to our next question. It's something on digital payments. How can it accelerate cash receipts?
Well, of course, we're talking about the receiving side of digital payments. Here again, if you have the capability to receive digital payments, once the customer decides those to pay, those payments come in much faster than a check moving through the postal system, and the funds become available. They're deposited in your account right away, and they become available earlier as well. Now, what we've seen over the years is customers on, for example, net 30-day terms, when they were paying with paper checks, they'd pay on day 32, 33, maybe day 30. I mean, let's look on the bright side here. And, then the mail time would be a few days. So the impact on them was the cash would leave their bank account on day 35, 36, 37. So when they moved to electronic payments, a lot of customers said, well, we're going to pay you on day 35 because that's when you got the money in the past, and we want to keep it neutral to us. And that may still happen. It does still happen. But, kind of the momentum is on your side, and that over time, you'll still have availability to that cash earlier with digital payments. And hopefully you can wear down your customers to pay you digitally on day 30 or 31 rather than day 35.
Thank you, John. And what do you think the other benefits would be from accepting digital payments?
Well, here again, it's accommodating, some would say indulging customer preferences. Again, the aspiration should be to be a tier 1 world-class supplier to your customers. And that involves all sorts of attributes. And most companies, primarily the bigger ones, score and rate their suppliers. And they rate them on a host of attributes and capabilities. Now, number one is delivering a good product or service, delivering it on the requested date. If it's a physical product, delivering it undamaged, packaged properly, delivered the way they want it, et cetera, et cetera. But more and more is becoming other factors too, such as administrative quality, invoicing accuracy and things like that. But also kind of attributes that would fall under the category of ease of doing business. The last thing you want your customers to say about you is, oh, you got good products, but you're difficult to do business with, or you're cumbersome to do business with, or you're hell to do business with. And accommodating digital payments is an important step to being a quality supplier.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much on that. We are almost on top of the hour. So again, thanks a lot for a great session. I'd like to thank you all the participants out there for attending this session, and would also want to invite you all to our next session, which is going to be on 16th of December at 8 a.m. Pacific. The topic of our session is minimize bad debt as pandemic stimulus fades. So we look forward to seeing you all over there. And in the meanwhile, if you do have any questions, do reach out to us at info@emagia.com. Thanks a lot,
Yes.
John, and thank you, everybody. Bye.
My pleasure. And please don't hesitate with any questions. Happy to receive and answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.